Welcome to the Myth of Motherhood, a podcast by, for, and about moms and those who love them. I don't believe in TMI, and this is a 100% judgment-free zone because there is no one right way to be a mother. There is only your right way. I'm your host, Alyssa Alter, a Brooklyn-based mom, women's health expert, and motherhood advocate. Curious to learn more about what I do and why I do it? Visit alyssa-alter.com. All right, let's get this myth-busting party started.
Welcome back to Myth of Motherhood, the podcast. Okay, last week we spoke to co-founder and CEO of Evie, Priyanka Jain, and I mentioned the BVC, the brain-vagina connection, and the power that is possible, the power we can get from more deeply understanding the vaginal microbiome and our vagina in general. Now, Priyanka said a lot of things that have stuck with me, but there are a couple that stick out the most. And the first one is that vaginal health is mental health. So in today's episode, I am talking about what I have seen in myself, what I have seen in clients in regards to the power of the brain-vagina connection, or BVC, as I like to call it. And I'm obviously going to be linking this, weaving in something I learned from improvisation, from improv comedy, because duh, that's how I do this, right? Is the idea of playing to the top of your intelligence. Now, I know this probably sounds cuckoo bananas, but stick with me because as always, there is a method to the madness. And I promise that today won't be all about postpartum or childbirth or my birth trauma. Nope. We're actually going to be talking mostly about sex today. Let's talk about sex, baby. Let's talk about the BVC. Let's talk about all the good things and the bad things our vagina see. Let's talk about sex. You're welcome for that. And listen, as Priyanka shared, there is a lot of research to be done that actually connect the vaginal microbiome to mental health. So that data needs to be done so that we can understand and know more things about the actual brain-vagina connection, things that we can hypothesize at this time, mirror and are related a lot to the brain-gut connection, right? And we talked about in the episode with Priyanka, which if you haven't listened to it yet, it's last week's episode. Go back and listen to that. You could do it now. You could do it at the end of this. Up to you. Right? There's the gut microbiome. There's the vaginal microbiome. And Priyanka shares that there's like a whole bunch of microbiomes. And so we don't yet have the data, mostly because we have vaginas, because we're women. We just have not been considered in the modern day medical system. But I'm sure that there will be proof in the pudding once we get the pudding. Now, what I do know from working with hundreds, at this point, maybe thousands of women, and from being a woman, is that when something is up with my vag or any of my vulva, my downstairs, my nether region, my undercarriage, whatever you want to call it, I'm freaking out, right? I might not be screaming and shouting and carrying on type of freaking out, but I am ruminating, spiraling, obsessing, internalizing all sorts of freaking trash kind of freaking out. So not one person that I have worked with who comes to me with pelvic floor concerns, pelvic floor dysfunction, pelvic floor injury, trauma, questions about their pelvic floor. Not one person who comes to me to work with me on pelvic floor health, right, and balance for Pilates for your privates. Not one person who comes to me, how many times am I going to say that, doesn't also bring with them mental and emotional concerns also. I see this all the time and I've experienced it because it is vulnerable to feel out of control in your body. It is tender to open up about this. It doesn't feel safe to share something so intimate, and that something so intimate isn't going right or hurts or feels wrong. And we internalize this to mean that we are wrong, that something we are doing or something about who we are is wrong. And that snowballs into a big pile of fear, anxiety, shame, embarrassment. Did I mention fear? We do not feel safe when we do not feel safe in our bodies. This is true. And I want more for you and for me and for all of us. And that's why I do this work. That's why I created this podcast. That's why I created my blog, alteryourlife.substack.com. This is why I created all of the courses and resources under Pilates for Your Privates available on my website. This is why I write, produce, and perform my shows using the content that I use. All of it, which you can, if you want to catch up, it's all available on my website, alysaalter.com. I do all of this because I believe that we deserve to feel safe, knowledgeable, and at home in our bodies. We deserve information and education that help us feel this way, that help us feel safe, knowledgeable, and at home in our bodies. Now, I've shared a lot, maybe too much, but I don't believe in TMI, so it probably isn't too much in this space. But I have shared a lot about my 4th degree tear from childbirth, and the physical and emotional toll that experience took on me, my family, my mental health, all of the above, and so much more after the birth of my son, who is now almost 3.5. I will never minimize or negate the impact of that birth injury, ever. I will be the last one to do that. And it really taught me so much more about the necessity of connecting the brain-vagina connection, the necessity of understanding and exploring the BVC. I was forced to connect with my deepest self in the deepest ways in order to heal from my birth injury and move forward. This BVC allowed me to get to a place where I feel confident being pregnant again and get pregnant again, which I share more about in episode 64, which is, so Priyanka was last week. The episode I just mentioned, number 64, Walking Back into the Fire, was the week before that, if you want to go back and listen. But again, I'm suggesting that because today, on today's episode, we're not talking birth trauma. It's going to be more fun than that. Now I know what you're thinking. Alyssa, what's more fun than birth trauma? I know, I get it. I see you. And today we're going to talk about sex and the BVC. So I've talked a lot about where your vagina is pointing. I've talked a lot about a lot of things, right? You know this, I know this. Great. So I don't know, it's obvious. So I've talked about where your vagina is pointing and how this relates to our physical and energetic alignment. And it makes me think of something that I learned from Patty Stanger. You may remember her from Millionaire Matchmaker. Now, I don't remember the exact quote she used to use, but when she would talk to her female clients or the women that she was matching with her male clients, or just, female and female, not all the couples were cis heteronormative couples. Anyway, she would say to the women to listen to their vaginas, to listen to her, check into what her vagina was saying. She might have said pussy. I don't know. I don't use that word that much. I don't have judgments about it. I guess it's just not my word. That's good for you, not for me. Anyway, she would tell them to listen to their vaginas. And she didn't say it. She wasn't she wasn't saying this in a flippant way. If he makes you wet, say yes. It wasn't that. She actually was talking about the BVC, even though she might not know what the BVC is. If you want to share this episode with Patty Stanger, I would love that. And maybe she should be on the show. Do we think she should be on the show? Anyway, okay. She wasn't saying if your vagina's wet, that means it's a go. Because if we've learned nothing from Emily Nagoski's brilliant work, including her book, Come As You Are, which I highly recommend as like required reading for a vagina owner or someone who relates to vaginas in any way, that wetness is like a physiological response. It's circumstantial. It is not an indication of you being turned on or into anything. What Patty was saying was to check in with your body, check in with your whole system, your intuition, your feminine spidey senses. I just got chills saying that. To get a read on the situation, to get a real read on the situation, free from all of the conditioning and trash we're told to prioritize, but actually connect ourselves to what's happening around us and let that guide our decision making and what's going on, right? To actually connect with our intuition. And I believe the BVC, the brain vagina connection, is how you access your intuition. Anyway, this is probably this watching Millionaire Matchmaker. Maybe that was like the first seed that planted into my brain, which grew into writing letters to my vagina, which if you haven't done this yet, consider this your formal invitation. Seriously, when I give this exercise to clients, to friends, when I share this, people, we laugh, whatever, it seems so silly. And then it is beyond impactful. I'm not going to say everyone cries every single time, but there have been tears. So if you cry when you're doing it, that's fine. I was going to say that's normal. It's fine, but I don't want to like continue that narrative either. But like, it wouldn't be weird. Also, we love weird around here. Okay, but so that's your formal invitation to do that. And like, maybe this was the seed to like my whole sort of movement of knowing where your vagina is pointing, because all of this isn't about like one female sex organ. It's about connecting with and listening to your deep intuitive wisdom, connecting with your body on a deeper level to help you move through the world in a more integrated way. We get so in our heads. And then we can also ignore our head and then just only be so in our bodies. But we need the connection. We need both. We need the yin and the yang, which there is a podcast episode about that. I can't remember the number. I believe it's titled The Art of Doing Less. You could go back to listen to that if you want. You guys have a lot of homework today. You don't have to do it. You are always invited to. And share the episodes with your friends. Obviously. Okay, anyway. So something else. So that's like, okay, Patty Stanger, Priyanka, me. We're talking about the BVC. We're talking about the importance of this brain-vagina connection, this understanding and trust in our deep intuitive knowledge of ourselves and in our bodies. And another thing that Priyanka said that stuck with me is that the vaginal microbiome is considered to be part of our immune system. Okay, wait, before I go deeper into that, I am going to share at the end of the episode, I'll tell you now, but I'll share a little more about it later, that if you are like hearing this, I know it could sound cuckoo bananas, but I'm telling you that the brain-vagina connection, we don't have the data yet. The proof will be in the pudding. And if you're looking to explore this more, like we could talk about it all day, but this is a mind-body connection thing that we can talk about it until we're blue in the face, but until you feel it in your body, there's a whole like section of understanding you just don't have. And if you are interested in exploring that further, I have 2 resources that are available on my website that I recommend as the best place to start to see like what in the world is Alyssa talking about, or how do I feel that? How do I feel that? And then really form my own experience, like lived experience opinion on that. And I would recommend checking out my 5-day pelvic floor mini course. It's 5 days. It's like max 7 minutes a day. And also you could take more than 5 days to do it. I didn't tell you that, but you could. Is a great way. That's a movement practice. That's 5 days of movement practice and information to help you connect to your body. And also check out the owner's manual, which is also available on my homepage, which that is, it's you creating your own owner's manual to yourself. And it's like journaling exercises and different things that you can do, right? Create for yourself your own resources to help you know how to like live in your body, how to integrate, how you're showing up, to put these pieces that are often so segmented to integrate them. Okay, I will talk more about that later. Anyway, so the other thing that Priyanka said that stuck with me, and oh my God, is that the vaginal microbiome can be considered to be part of our immune system. Okay, so what does our immune system do? It protects us from things that pose a danger, things that will throw off homeostasis and cause stress on our system, things that will complicate things, that may make us sick, that will make us feel bad, that aren't healthy or safe. Okay, so what I hear when I say that is that if I consider my vagina, right, if I really consider her and I get intimate with her and become more fluent in her language, she will protect me from things that aren't good for me, that aren't safe, and are potentially unhealthy or dangerous. Okay, now this feels very true to me because, well, I'm going to share with you a story that maybe you saw me share this story live for the first time in Brooklyn, New York, in my friend and teacher's storytelling show, Carly Ann Philbin of Writing in Brooklyn. Her storytelling show was the first time I shared this story publicly, that highlights an experience or a series of experiences that I myself had where, yeah, my vagina was really trying to tell me something, and really I just didn't understand her. I didn't speak her language at this time, so I really didn't understand it. So she was like screaming in my face and basically like slapped me across the face. So, okay. A fun fact about me, Alyssa, is that I love traveling and I'm terrified of flying. The only reason I get on the plane is because it's the only way to travel the world. And when I do, my body like revolts. My entire body screams, this is a terrible idea. There's usually diarrhea, and sometimes I throw up before I get on the plane. Okay, but sometimes you have to ignore these very direct messages from your body, right? That your body is sending you. I mean, being trapped in a metal tube 30,000 feet above the earth is totally normal, right? Why should I be freaking out? It's fine that if there were some sort of emergency, there's absolutely no way to get out. And no matter how much I try to convince myself that this fear is totally unnecessary, my body knows, and my body tells me the truth no matter what lies I feed it. Okay, another fun fact about me is before my ex-husband, my first husband, I know, I look far too young for this to be true. Alas, this is my story. Before my first husband, I'd only slept with my high school boyfriend, who was nice enough, but it was high school. The sex wasn't good. It happened a lot in like the back of his Bronco or like quietly in my basement so my parents wouldn't hear. There wasn't a lot of foreplay because we were in high school. I mean, I was thrilled that I was having sex at all. And plus, it needed to be done quickly before we got caught, right? So my first husband and I started similarly. I'd gotten to college and was seriously just like hot on freedom. And just being at college turned me on. In our first few months of dating, we made out in the middle of parties. We had sex in the bathroom at parties, and even had sex on the couch in the middle of a party when we were sleeping. Yeah, but like many long-term relationships, things fizzled. And by the time we got married, 7.5 years later, we rarely had sex. And everyone says that you don't have sex when you're married, so I figured we're simply ahead of the curve. We're nailing marriage before we're even married. So, okay, this one night, I finished brushing my teeth. I finished brushing my night guard, pop it in, get into bed, and I'm reaching for my nightstand for my bunion night splints when I feel my now ex-husband scoot over to my side of the bed. I know what's coming. I have a boner. My stomach drops. I freeze. Because I dread having sex. There's still not much foreplay, and it's annoying how I have to finagle my hand in between us to get my vibrator in place because there's no chance that I'm coming without my vibrator, and I'm not really interested in doing this if I'm not going to get off too. His sexual initiations make me cringe. I have a boner is a classic. Take your pants off. Are you wet? Which I've since learned from Emily Nagoski has very little to do with the situation. Anyway, later, what I will learn, not from Emily Nagoski, but what I will learn for myself is that under different circumstances, in different contexts, these sexual initiations, these lines can actually be really hot. But now here in this context with him, with me, in this dynamic, they feel childish and gross. And it's the way he says it. Like his erection is my responsibility. Now, at this point, I'd been avoiding sex for months. I don't know how many. I don't keep track because I'm perfectly satisfied never having sex. Periodically, I give in because I'm supposed to do this. I'm supposed to want to have sex. I'm supposed to want to have sex with my husband. I'm supposed to have sex with my husband. I take out my night guard, I put my bunion night splints in the drawer, and I take out my vibrator. Really? He asks. Sure, I reply, and I roll onto my back. It doesn't seem to register to him, although I don't know. It doesn't seem to register to him that there's no excitement coming from my end. I don't know this for sure because I never asked him, and he didn't ask me. For me, this is purely out of obligation, and I'm just sort of along for the ride. He fumbles with my undercarriage, moaning and acting like we are both enjoying this, and I'm there. He asks if I'm ready. I say sure, because I'm never going to be ready, and the sooner this is over, the sooner I can put my night guard back in, put on my bunion night splints, and go to bed. I mean, it doesn't feel bad. It's fine. I slide my vibrator between us, and I'm glad for the excuse to push him off of me a little bit. He's pumped to be here, and he starts pumping away. I close my eyes. I focus on my vibrator. The rhythm changes, and I know I'm running out of time, so I turn up the power of my vibrator because I don't have much longer to sneak in my orgasm before this is over. We're basically masturbating at each other. I can tell he's getting close, so I turn my head to the side like I always do. His breathing shifts. Is it? Nope. Okay. Nope. We're not there yet. The rhythm changes again. And now I know he's getting closer. I deepen my breathing and brace myself. I know what's coming. He's at his peak in the throes of pleasure. And I start to gag. I don't even try to hide it anymore. I'm dry heaving with my head turned to the side as he is orgasming. He doesn't seem to notice I am retching at his pleasure. Maybe he thinks I'm coming. I don't know. And again, I never asked, and he didn't ask either. He rolls off me, satisfied and enjoying his post-orgasm high. I'm still gagging as I get up to pee. And listen, this happens every time we have sex, so I know I'm not going to actually throw up. I'll just heave a little bit, and then it's fine, and then I'll be fine. And then I pee, because I don't want a UTI, and look at myself in the mirror. How did this happen? How did I get here? What does this mean? What does it mean that I can't have sex with my husband without gagging when he orgasms? What is my body rejecting and trying to purge itself of? Sex? Men? Him? Intimacy? Marriage? And as I look at myself in the mirror, all I see is disgust. Not with him. This isn't about him. I am disgusted with myself because I just had sex with a man who doesn't notice I gag when he comes. I just had sex with a man and gag when he comes. A moment that is supposed to be unifying, intimate, and shared between lovers makes me sick. I look in the mirror, and this time I see the woman that I became when no one was looking. I see that I am no longer the naive, lost 18-year-old freshman that I was when we met. Regardless of the lies that I am trying to feed myself, my body is telling me the truth. And while I will ignore these very clear messages from my body in order to travel to the world, when it comes to orgasms from now on, I'm listening. And believe me, when I was released into the wild that is dating in New York City in your 30s, I listened to my body and my orgasms. I kept that promise to myself. Now, I dated someone for a number of months, and while looking back, hindsight being 2020, I think I always knew that it was stunted, limited, not going anywhere. And that it also was a great introduction for me to an adult sexual relationship. There was a lot of generosity, a lot of consent, a lot of experimentation, and a lot of orgasms. And I gagged 0.0 times. I'd done it, right? Here I am. I'd achieved sexual enlightenment, right? I'd learned my lessons. Here I go. My vagina was saying yes. I wasn't gagging. I nailed it. I was fluent in my vagina now, right? Well, throughout the course of our relationship, I had a series of yeast infections, urinary tract infections, one of which escalated to a kidney infection, and other suspicious itchies, which never really got diagnosed nor progressed, and they just kind of went away, and all tests related came back negative or clear, and there was nothing. There was nothing to do, right? Well, okay, before I continue down this road, I do want to take a little moment. I promised you that I would link this to improv comedy, obviously, right? So before we get back to my sexcapades, I want to remind you that at this time in my life, right, I was playing to the top of my intelligence. To the top of the intelligence I had at this point in my life. I had been with the same person from age 18 to nearly 31. I'd only slept with my high school boyfriend before him, and this was my first partner after him. So I was inexperienced, okay? I was at the beginning of my relationship with myself and wasn't yet fluent in what my vagina was saying, even though I thought I was fluent because I did learn big lessons, but they weren't all the lessons, right? The brain-vagina connection, the BVC was just forming. We weren't totally speaking the same language yet, but she was still talking to me. She was consistent and dedicated and patient and understanding as she worked to teach me her ways. She understood that I didn't know any better yet, that I was playing to the top of my current intelligence. So I kept sleeping with this guy because I cared about him, and the sex was good and the itchiness prevailed. Eventually, I broke things off with him because it became so clear that this wasn't going anywhere. And I knew I wanted to find my husband and the father of my children and start the life of my dreams. I knew Jeremy was out there, although I didn't know that it was Jeremy yet. But I knew that he was out there, and I had learned enough at this point to know that you cannot change someone. And also, I don't want to change anyone. That's on them. And so what I'm about to say probably isn't shocking to you, but it was shocking to me at the time of this realization that that guy that I dated for several months with the itchiness was like 90%, like he was sleeping with someone else the entire time we were together. So maybe something about that other woman or he himself disrupted my vaginal microbiome or what, like my inside, but my vagina was trying to protect me from something hurtful. Whether or not it was a pathogen, I will never know. But she was trying to protect me from something unhealthy and something that was not in my alignment, that did not align with my path forward. When something enters our body that is foreign, that is perceived as a threat, our immune system responds. It sends heat, swelling, pain, itchiness, rashes, all sorts of uncomfortable or painful signals to get us to pay attention, to get us to remove the threat, to get us to take action. But we are conditioned to push through, endure, tolerate, suffer. I could go on about this, but I already did that in episode 16. Pain is our call to action. What I will say is that with time, experience, and intention, we can become more fluent in our bodies and what our vaginas are saying. And I'm saying that because I did it. I understand and translate these warning signs now into actions that keep me safe, on course, and in my alignment. And you can too. We can become more in tune and play to a higher level of intelligence to make more confident, intuitive, aligned decisions. Especially when we find ourselves in a place where we are making decisions that we don't have a ton of information about, like dating someone new, sleeping with someone new, or choosing a preschool for your 3-year-old, which determines what kind of childcare you'll have and what that will look like when you have another baby. But you have to make the decision before you actually have the other baby. So you have no idea what the fuck you're deciding, but you have to decide because you don't know what you're dealing with because you've never had 2 kids before. So yeah, that's something I recently drove myself and Jeremy fairly nuts about trying to figure out. And I bet you didn't think that from that conversation about sex and our vaginas that we're going to improv and now preschool. You're welcome. I assure you there is a method to the madness, and thank you for sticking with me. So yeah. Okay. So recently I drove myself and Jeremy pretty batty about this. And it's funny because in parenthood, in motherhood, it is so easy to make decisions harder, to overthink, to overcomplicate, to overanalyze every single thing because every single decision I make determines every aspect of my son's future, which isn't even true, but it feels that way. And I don't know what life with 2 kids is going to be like. I'm barely starting to get a sense of what life with 1 kid is like. And I'm starting to get a sense of like who this next baby is. Like I know he's active. Shocking that a child of mine would be active. And he likes it when I eat. Like that's all I have so far on this kid. I have no idea what it's going to be like to meet this baby. I have no idea what it's going to be like to have 2 kids. I don't know what I am going to be like after having a second child. I know this experience will be different than last time. And I talked about that also in episode 64, Walking Back into the Fire. And I even sang about it in We Party #This is Motherhood. clips of which are on the website. They're on YouTube. They're on my reels on Instagram. On Instagram, I have 2 reels. Let's talk about having another baby, parts 1 and 2. I sing in the second part. Okay, because I know that this will be different, but I don't know what it will be. Will my PTSD be triggered? If so, for how long? Will I have postpartum anxiety again? Will I get postpartum depression? Will there be nothing because I have support systems in place already and I'll stay on top of it and it's just going to be a completely different experience? Will I decide that I don't want to work anymore and be a full-time stay-at-home parent? Will I come across an opportunity that I've dreamt of and work more and actually need more childcare? Will this baby sleep? Will this baby eat? Will he smile? Will this baby even be cute? I know that I will think that he's cute, but will he actually be cute? There is so much that I don't know, that making any sort of decision that requires me, especially one that requires me to commit thousands of dollars, feels absolutely insane. And yet, yes, I'm about to talk about my vagina again. There is a method to the madness, I promise. And yet, what finally got me out of this spiraling and obsessing and back into the present and to stop tormenting Jeremy with this was the reminder that all I can do is play to the top of my intelligence. All I can do is use the information that I have and play to the top of my intelligence. Because while I've had plenty of experiences where I wasn't able to benefit from my vagina's intelligence, I now have had experiences where I have. She spoke up loud and clear that Jeremy was the way to go. She spoke very loudly that what happened with Everett was fucked up and that she and I would be okay. She brought me here to this podcast. She brought me to co-founding postpartum.com with no vowels, to founding Pilates for Your Privates, and she pointed me to a preschool that I am very excited about for Everett and for me because the other parents that I've met seem freaking awesome. And while in this episode, I used sex as the main example of the BVC, the brain-vagina connection, and why we need to increase our vaginal fluency. This connection, guidance, and intuition obviously expands outside of sex and even outside of preschool too. I know. You did not expect sex and preschool to be used and talked about so many times in such close proximity, right? It seems weird, but I promise, again, there's a method to the madness. I even threw improv in there because I like to keep you on your toes. And also, this is how my brain works, so welcome. Our vaginas are for more than sex and babies. I've said it a couple times in this episode. I've talked about it on other episodes, in articles I've written, books I've written, and it is a major player in all of the resources available in Pilates for Your Privates, is that we can utilize the power of our pelvic floor, of our vagina, to deepen your connection to your own body, to your experience inside yourself, to your intuition. And when you are connected to your fullest self, this affects literally everything. Yes, it affects your sexual experiences and orgasms. Yes, it allows you to more confidently ask for what you want in the bedroom, and it allows you to confidently ask for what you need outside the bedroom in your whole freaking life. I mentioned this earlier, and if you find yourself right now as I'm talking about this thinking, I'll have what she's having. When Harry Met Sally is my favorite movie. And this type of fluency and understanding of yourself and your body sounds good to you, I invite you, I encourage you to check out the Pilates for Your Privates 5-day pelvic floor mini course. It's available on my website, alyssalter.com/courses. It is a 5-day mini course. Shocking based on the title, right? And it takes, again, maybe 7 minutes a day. It's so doable. And these are movements that they are shared with you, my intention is that these are then movement patterns and ideas and concepts that you can integrate into the rest of your life to feel how these connections translate off of the mat. And I also want to invite you again to check out your owner's manual. It's listed on the homepage of my website, alysaalter.com. All of this is linked in the show notes as well. And while the owner's manual is not a movement-based practice, it's a literal owner's manual for you because we never got one. And if we had, let's be honest, it would have been written by like some colonial white dude who has no idea where the clitoris is. And we deserve an owner's manual about ourselves. We have one for our dishwasher, right? This is a workbook, journal, manual that guides you to create the owner's manual for you, outlining how you work, what you need, how to maintain, prolong the longevity and performance of you. These two resources are the best place to begin to understand what the fuck is going on with your vag, your body, and yourself. Now, okay. You may remember that I started this episode with an original song about sex and the BVC, right? Right. So it feels fitting that we end this episode with another one. Do you agree? I know you do. Why aren't there more songs about vaginas and what they can teach us all? Vaginas are here. There's nothing to fear. Vaginas have nothing to hide. They share what they know and some choose to believe them. They're rewarded handsomely. Someday we'll find it, the brain-vagina connection, to alter your life as you need. As always, I have got your back, I've got your front, and I've got your undercarriage. I'll see you next week.
Thank you so much for sharing your precious time with me. I am so happy that you're here. I hope this episode resonated with you and maybe even inspired some insight into the myth of motherhood and how that shows up for you in your life. If you found yourself nodding your head along with this episode thinking, oh my God, did Alyssa read my journal? Or I feel so seen. Or even I'll have what she's having. You can. Check out our incredible community over in the private Facebook group Moms Club and visit me at alyssa-alter.com to download your free guide to the 20 things no one tells you about pregnancy and postpartum. Remember, there is no one right way to be a mother. There is only your right way. See you next week.